Greetings from the Alexandrina Council. Let's meet the driving force behind the Alexandrina community. Chief Executive Officer, Andrew MacDonald. Mayor, Keith Parks. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Peter Oliver. West Ward, Councillor Bill Coomans. Councillor Lou Nicholson. Councillor Michael Scott. North Ward, Councillor Craig Maidment. Councillor Sue Miller. Councillor Christy Thornton. South Ward, Councillor Margaret Gardner. Councillor Millie Livingston. And finally, Councillor Peter Oliver.
Good afternoon. Welcome to our council meeting Monday the 16th of June 2025. An audio recording of this meeting will be made for minute-taking purposes and will last the length of the open meeting. The audio file will be available on the council website after the draft minutes have been circulated. I'd like to welcome elected members. We have apologies from Councillor Livingston and Councillor Nicholson. Also like to welcome our Chief Executive Officer, Andrew MacDonald, General Manager Community, Stacey Bateson, General Manager Infrastructure, Alan Harvey, General Manager Corporate, Tash Hunt, and some of our other staff who are here as required. Ask you all to please stand for the acknowledgement of owners and a local government prayer. The Alexandrina Council and its communities acknowledge the Narrandjeri, the Paramount and the Gardner people as the traditional custodians of the lands and waters of our council district. Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee to grant thy blessing upon the works of this council. Guide us in our deliberations for the advancement and the true welfare of the people of this district. Thank you. Just remind council members, if you have an interest in an item before council, for the purposes of Part 4, Division 1, Subdivision 4 of the Local Government Act of 1999, in a matter which will be for the council at this meeting, you're asked to disclose the interest of the council, provide full and accurate detail of the relevant interest at the beginning of the meeting. Members are reminded they must deal with the conflict of interest in accordance with the relevant provisions of Subdivision 4 at the time arises for consideration. And we don't have any advice of any conflicts. So item 2 is confirmation of minutes. 2.1 is the confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary council meeting of the 19th of May 2025. It's a matter that they be received as true and correct. Move Councillor Maidment. Second, Councillor Coomans. Any discussion relating to those minutes? Not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 2.2 is the Cemetery Advisory Committee minutes of the 21st of May 2025. There's a recommendation that they be received and noted. Move Councillor Gardner. Second, Councillor Oliver, sorry. Any questions or discussion relating to those minutes? Not, I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 2.3 is the South Australian Wood and Boat Festival Committee minutes of the 26th of May 2025, and the recommendation that they be received and noted. Moved Councillor Oliver. Second, Councillor Gardner. Any question, Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Worship. Just very quickly, I noticed that the festival had a deficit, and I just wondered where those funds were recovered from, or will be recovered from. Thank you, through the chair. We're discussing. Sorry.
We're discussing the deficit and where that's going to come from with our finance team as we speak. I can provide an offline answer to that.
Is there any further discussion or questions relating to that committee? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 2.4 is the Climate Emergency and Environment Committee minutes of the 2nd of June 2025, and the recommendation that they be received and noted. Moved Councillor Gardner. Seconder, Councillor Maidment. Any questions or discussion relating to those minutes? If not, I'll put the recommendation to all those in favour. Against? It's carried unanimously. Item 3 is adjourned debate. There is none. Item 4 is presentations and deputations. 4.1, we have a deputation from Mayor Brown. It's regarding an assessment of street trees in Daniel Avenue, Goolwa North. So, Mary, welcome. And do you need more than 5 minutes?
No, I don't.
No, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening all. To introduce you, I'm Mary Brown. Firstly, to clarify before you, these 5 big trees regarding this deputation are situated outside my boundary on Daniel Avenue. I have lived here for 20 years and built my house with a builder. When I bought the block, it looked like a park with the trees. Despite checking with family members, really, I should not have bought it with the threat of these trees. However, I have lived here happily. Since these trees have dropped big limbs and are getting bigger and bigger in the last 3 years, I want to try with Alexandrina Council to solve this problem, which is a threat to myself and immediate neighbours. You can see we're going to go one by one, are we, Tanya, on these slides? I'll explain. On a windy night, I just hope for the best. Southern arborists who have kindly assessed, photographed and made recommendations for trimming, all gratis, have said they would be nervous living in my house. In fact, I believe I would have trouble selling my house with the threat of these trees. Every year lately, I feel like moving the trees. So I hope we can come to a fair and just solution to this problem, to our safety and well-being. I was a registered nurse for 45 years, my background, 11 of which at South Coast District Hospital, which I loved. Really, I would be prepared to contribute financially to a solution with these trees. And realistically, is it going to be cost effective for the council to pay for regular assessment and cutting back? Personally, I'm thinking for them to be cut down and planting appropriate, attractive trees. Actually, I spend at least half an hour every week cleaning up outside all the tree fallings. It wouldn't look nice there if I didn't. So please, let's find a good solution for this situation. Is that the first? These are the slides of the recommendations for trimming. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? No, so thanks very much for your presentation. Thank you very much. We have now 4.2 is a deputation from Mr Lew McMaster. It's regarding the extension of the 2025-26 swimming season at the Strathalbyn Swimming Pool. Lew, welcome. Do you need more than 5 minutes?
I may, Your Worship.
10 minutes?
Oh, that'll be adequate.
Yep,
Yes,
everybody in favour of that? Okay. Yep, thank you.
Well, thank you for permission to present to you this evening. On behalf of my fellow swimmers, and committee, thank you for the extension we enjoyed last year. And it's certainly generated some positive outcomes, which I'll briefly go through. Let's try. A bit of context, I'm sure many of you are aware that the Strathalbyn Pool is fairly unique, 50 metres heated, and the only 50-metre pool in our region, and draws clients from Stirling, Murray Bridge, Mount Barker and Clayton. Further context, demographics, Strathalbyn's a growing community, and these statistics are from the National Census conducted every 5 years by the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and shows there is a steady increase. The next one is for the immediate area of Strathalbyn Township, and the point to note is that over 30% of the residents are 60 years of age and older. So we have a significant older community, people retiring there by choice. But we also have a strong youth retention too. A lot of young families moving in, a lot of subdivision, which I'm sure you're well aware of. And we've also been blessed to have a lot of young people as well. And haven't seen some of the decline in youth that perhaps some of the other communities in the district have. The statistics of attendance, histogram form, compliments of Linda Schultz, and I thank her for that. On the left, the dark blue is the attendance last swimming season, and progressing to the right, the preceding seasons to that. This graphic is possibly more useful, and it shows how attendance increases as it gets warmer during the summer, declines as it gets cooler towards the winter, and the difference in side elevations of the curves indicate a warm versus a cooler season, and certainly the dark blue with the last season was very warm last summer and saw excellent attendance. And if you contrast that with the other one, the preceding season, I can remember very cold, and I can remember Christmas Day huddled around a fire on a Weber at the back veranda. The results, preliminary results, again, thank you to Linda Schultz for this. We saw an extra over 800 people attending in the extra 4 weeks, the first 2 weeks of October and the last 2 of April. And I believe that it exceeded the allocated budget by about 5,000. And the YMCA manager passed on some very positive feedback from the regular morning lap swimmers, of whom I'm one. The benefits, health benefits of swimming, I'm sure this is well known to all of you folk. Medical science and health experts all concur that it has a lot of good benefit, particularly for the senior folk of my generation, where you get into hip replacements and knee reconstructions, things like this. It's a low impact form of exercise that seems to service most of the muscles in the body, and the benefits are significant. And I've certainly appreciated them. Now, one of the outcomes of the 4-week extension to the season last year was the emergence of what I call a socially critical mass, a term borrowed from nuclear physics, where you get the right combination of ingredients and suddenly you get this massive energy release. And we saw this generate some initiatives I haven't seen before. I've been swimming for 10 years down there. And there was a significant upgrade in cohesion and sort of mutual support amongst the swimmers. Some of the positive outcomes there, there was caring and nurturing in relationships. When someone was absent, I had the incident of some hospitalisation during a couple of times during the season. People would ring and say, "How are you, Lou? What's happening?" That was really comforting. And some folk who are in their senior years often experience loneliness. But we're now going out as a group for dinner regularly, supporting one another with birthdays and celebrations, and even the sadder events with bereavement, as happened last week, I beg your pardon, with the husband of one of our swimmers passing away. But there's a big contingent of fellow swimmers that went there to support that lady. So just to sum up, Strathalbyn's a growing, vibrant community with a strong contingent of young families and a growing proportion of retired seniors. And the pool benefits both those sectors and in between. and the 4-week extension last year led to a fresh appreciation of the benefits and the privilege we have of that pool and the recreation it offers the community. So we would argue and request to the Council investment in the pool service to continue because of the joyous social wellbeing benefits it generates and social cohesion, mental health, and respectively request that the Council budget for next financial year be modified to accommodate a further 4-week extension to the swimming season to verify results to date, and that the valuation of the metrics for the trial extension formally recognised includes social benefits, intangible as they are, generated for the Strathalbyn community. We talk about, and I'm sure you've heard the term, triple bottom line accounting, where it's people, planet and profit. And there's a lot of benefit and value besides just the financial income that might be generated through the gate. So thank you for that. And there was one other slide. I might I'll put it up anyway and leave it there as I'll wait any questions. And talking about how to quantify intangible variables. And this is a challenge, I think, for a lot of community governance entities, how to accommodate things that you can't measure or count, but are very valuable and important. And anyway, I leave that slide for your consideration. But thank you again for the privilege of speaking with you, and I look forward to your deliberations and outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. Any questions, Councillor Maidment?
Not so much a question, but I invite you to have a look at the administration report 9.6 on tonight's agenda. It's the Fleurieu Aquatic Centre Joint Venture Quarterly Report. We sent 2 representatives to the Royal Life Saving Australia Infrastructure Symposium, and that event identified that swimming centres are not just a place to swim, they are critical pieces of community infrastructure to support health, connection and resilience for people of all ages and backgrounds, and community must be at the centre of decision making, which aligns with exactly what you've been talking to us tonight. So I invite you to read that.
Have any further questions, Councillor Scott?
How much was recouped? If it cost us 30 to keep it open, how much was recouped with the people swimming there, please?
Through the chair, I believe it was, off the top of my head, about not quite $500, and that's because it was members who actually were able to benefit from that extension. So the members had already paid the membership and they were able to use it with the extra 4 weeks.
Any further questions? Lou, the only place you didn't mention people coming from is Goolwa, and I know people that drive from Goolwa to Strath to swim in that pool because it's 50 metres, and they like doing the 50-metre swims, and they love the extension of time. So it's interesting they can drive just down the road to the Victor Harbour boundary and use our aquatic centre, but they'd rather drive.
Yeah. So, from an athlete's point of view or a swimmer's point of view, keeping momentum going over a distance is really important and helpful. So
thanks very much for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship.
So item 5 is petitions. 5.1 is a request for an arborist assessment of the 5 street trees on Daniel Avenue, Goolwa North, and the recommendation that petition be forwarded to the Infrastructure Division for assessment and a response. Moved, Councillor Miller. Second, Scott. I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Item 6 is questions with notice. 6.1 is a question from Councillor Miller relating to development statistics in the North Ward. 6.2 is a question from Councillor Miller regarding applications for rate capping, hardship, postponement of rates for seniors and relative social economic disadvantage index. 6.3 is a question from Councillor. 6.3 is a question from Councillor Miller regarding road and roadside vegetation management outside of townships. And 6.4 is a question from Councillor Livingston relating to the Customs House in Goolwa. Those questions and all of the answers form part of the agenda. Item 7 is questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice? Councillor Scott.
I understand that our young planner, who was the state winner of the planning award of some kind, went to Darwin for a national result, national title. I believe that's happened. How did he go and what was the result, please?
Thank you. Through the Chair, I'll ask the Group Manager Regional Development to answer, as he was there himself.
Thank you. Through the Chair. Yes, one of our young planners, Michael Yench, was nominated. He actually won the South Australian Young Planner of the Year, and that qualified him to go into the national pool for the national awards. So yes, we did go to Darwin last month for the Planning Congress, which is the National Congress for the Planning Association. That was supplemented through the Planning Institute for Michael because he was nominated for an award. Unfortunately, he wasn't successful in winning the national award, but we're really proud of him either way.
Any further questions without notice? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I was just interested if Council will be making a submission to the State Government's Regional Public Transport Review. I know we made a submission in August 2022, and this is, I believe, informing the public transport strategy that the State Government's developing, and submissions close on the 27th of June. So I was just curious if we'll be responding.
Thank you. Through the Chair, yes, we will be making a submission, and I'd just like to advise the councillors that several team members attended the joint workshop at City of Victor Harbor last week, including CEO, Group Manager Regional Development, Manager Strategic Development, the team of Community and Manager of Economic Development, along with Councillor Gardner. The team did provide significant and comprehensive feedback while they were the team do believe, and we support them in putting forward a formal submission, and we're actually going to ask Victor Harbor, District Council Yankalilla and Regional Development SA if they would like to join in on our submission. Otherwise we'll put one forward and collate ourselves.
So any further questions? Councillor Miller, another one.
Thank you, Worship. I just have 3 questions about the advice we had last week about the Strathalbyn Harness Racing Club's decision to withdraw their EOI for the second time. Will Council be making any public statement about it to the broader community and what it means for this initiative? And I've got 2 other questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll hand that through to the Regional Development Group Manager.
Thank you. Through the Chair. There's currently no plan to provide a public comment regarding next steps for the Strathalbyn Recreation Precinct. Administration continues to work through next steps in accordance with Council's resolution on the 3rd of March 2025, and specifically Administration's recommended funding in the draft 25-26 budget to enable detailed design to be undertaken for a 2-court indoor facility that can be designed to increase to a 4-court facility, a dog park, playing fields and an RV park campground. And importantly, that design detail work would include public consultation.
Thank you. I just am interested if Council in their advocacy, we were very fortunate that the federal member for Mayo advocated for this initiative, but given we've got a state election coming up in March, and in the North Ward there are actually 3 electorates. We've got Hammond, Hythen and Finnis, and I'm just hoping that asking if Council administration is or will be actively engaging in advocacy with those MPs for this Strathalbyn Recreation Precinct.
Through the Chair, we're not currently engaging with the state members of Parliament. We do acknowledge that we've got an excellent business plan and costings for the recreation precinct, and that it'll be difficult to obtain state or federal funding without having detailed designs and a relevant planning consent for the works. So that'll be our focus for 25-26, but we do acknowledge that advocacy for our relevant state MPs will be an ongoing conversation at every opportunity.
And just finally, my last question is, will we be developing an advocacy prospectus for the state election for the whole region, the whole area?
Just through the chair, I'm not in a position to answer that. I'm not aware.
Yeah, through the chair, we haven't actually turned our mind to that at this point in time, but take on board your suggestion. Thank you.
Are there any further questions? We'll move on to section 8, notices of motions. 8.1 is a notice of motion from Councillor Oliver regarding the Middleton stormwater upgrades and flood mitigation actions. Councillor Oliver, you wish to move that and speak to it?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to personally apologise to the Middleton community for the lack of action or implementation of any practical outcomes since the storm event. Also for the risk and anxiety you have experienced since that time. 2.5 years is too long, and under current considerations, it could be years before anything is achieved. You shouldn't have to live in fear of flooding. You shouldn't have to sell your house, build your own levees, or stand by with pumps in the middle of the night. And thank you to the community for escalating the importance and urgency of these issues. I've raised this motion in response to bring these issues to the fore and to facilitate some urgent practical outcomes during the next fiscal period, well ahead of development of the proposed long-term Alexandrina-wide plan. And during discussions with administration, I understand they have recognised the need for action now. We can maintain the integrity of the budget and also come up with specific actions that can be discussed and agreed during the next few weeks as part of finalisation of the budget. And I envisage that these will include upstream stormwater works to Flagstaff Hill Road, downstream sewage system installation on Mill Terrace, and individual risk and mitigation assessments on a house-by-house, street-by-street basis. And these actions can be completed within the next 12 months with appropriate community involvement and consultation. The motion also asks for consideration of emergency accommodation assistance in the event of a disaster. So elected members, could you please support this motion and let's get some action happening. Thank you.
So do we have a seconder? Councillor Coomans, and you wish to speak to it?
I just want to reserve my right to speak on this one, please.
So do we have any discussion against the recommendation? You wish to speak against it?
I have questions.
A question, yeah.
My understanding is that we're having a briefing on this for an hour on Monday night. And dot point 2, I don't understand what would be deferred or removed. So that's not articulated in the motion. Dot point 3, I don't quite understand what that means. Is that saying that we shouldn't develop asset management plans for each asset class or prioritise stormwater assets? I don't understand that point. Dot point 4, is that something we would have to do, given we haven't considered the feedback from the budget yet? Would we be consulting again with our community? It's dot point of recommendation 2. Is that in the remit of council? I just want to clarify these points before I can even contemplate this. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Miller. Just firstly, the concept of the workshop came up. This has been discussed for the last couple of weeks with admin, raised by myself following the community. The concept of the workshop was come up with after this was raised. through the...
Just to be clear, if for some reason you need to ask a question that you would like the mover of the motion to answer, you need to state that you would ask the mover to clarify some points through me. That's the process, so that we know. But normally administration will select who answers. But Councillor Oliver, if you wish to respond to those questions.
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, I'd like to say my understanding is that the concept of the workshop arose or came as a result of this motion having been documented. And secondly, you will note that the word considers appears in each of the motion points. So the idea is at the workshop to consider these items and the content of the workshop, and that was discussed during that process. I think that's a fair description.
So is there any discussion against the motion? Councillor Gardner, against it?
Yes, I think so. There is no doubt that the Middleton people suffered greatly in that downpour in the flooding. I was there, I'm very well aware of it, and experienced on a whole day working at the mill the day after the flood occurred. If we have a workshop on this topic next Monday, I would prefer to be able to talk about it first before I consider this motion.
Through the chair, I guess a couple of points. There's Alan Harvey and his team. There's a lot of activity happening in the background at the moment in relation to planning and Middleton flood mitigation, etc. So the motion that's before you at the moment is simply for further discussion for discussion to take place at a workshop. In conversation with the Deputy Mayor, Alan and myself, in discussing this motion, we believe that an update on Middleton works that is happening at the moment would be important. So to bring council members up to speed so you know exactly where things are at, to share with council members some of the key projects that are being conceptually designed at the moment, and for council members to make consider in an informed manner whether or not it wishes to consider bringing forward some of these works. So the motion that's before you is simply for that discussion to take place as part of the 23rd of June workshop process.
So is there any discussion for the motion? Councillor Scott.
Yes, thank you, and my thanks to the Deputy Mayor for raising this, even though if we're having a workshop, some of this may be clarified then, but it is quite a length of time since this occurred, and people may get lured into thinking, oh well, yes, it's only once in 100. We had 4 inches of rain in about an hour and a half. We could get 2 inches of rain in 3/4 of an hour, which would have the same effect. And I've been particularly interested in Mill Terrace because that scored water from another area, not just down the Middleton Creek. And I have made contact with Steam Ranger myself to see about some basic common sense things like increasing the size of the culvert at the end of Mill Terrace, and also removing a box culvert, which I was originally told was on Steam Ranger land and therefore not council. Steam Ranger denied they own it and say that even though it's on their land, it belongs to the council. Now, I think that there's also the matter that we need to be seen to be doing stuff. I realise that there is stuff being done to a high level and there needs to be a lot of technical stuff worked out. I appreciate that. But I also think that we need to be demonstrating to the public that we're doing the easy stuff, the things that we can do quickly. So we're at least trying to get the simple stuff out of the way, like removing this culvert. I think it's quite serious when you think that, yes, the mill is there as well, and due respects to the owners of the mill. But we had a medical centre that had a lot of medical equipment that was damaged as a result of that flood. And I think we need to be working fairly quickly, and I'd hope faster than this, to do the simple things. It doesn't take a lot of calculation to work out that when there's a culvert for the railway line that has to be strong to get those big old engines over, but it actually blocks the water going through. And so therefore, as I point out to the steam ranger man, they either put another one in or you deepen the one you've got. And then also take away this box culvert, which is doing nothing but slowing down the flow of water. It needs to be open, and so the water will flow through and out because there's more coming. And that's the sort of thing that I think we can be doing quite easily. I could move that box culvert in about a quarter of an hour with my front end loader. So it's not a hard job or an expensive job. And I think things like that where it demonstrates to the community, yes, we are trying to do things. The big involved stuff takes longer, it's more expensive, it'll take time. They appreciate that. But just things where the water is pouring down Ocean Road and turning left and coming down William Street, going straight into the Middleton store. Let's do something quickly to get the water going past and on down Ocean Road so it doesn't go down to the Middleton store. Little things like that we can do. And that's what I'm keen on doing, while I respect the fact and wait for what Alan is doing with his people and those that are technically, the technical expertise. This can be done in the meantime.
So is there any discussion against the motion? Against?
Your Worship, I'm just trying to understand I know this is saying consider, so this is my question, which is I thought what we were doing in the next 23rd of June and 30th of June workshop. So I think we're going to do this anyway. Is that's correct? And the budget will be adopted at the 7th of July. Is there a date by which we must have the budget adopted? I mean, we've got I think we've got till the end of August or mid-August, have we?
So through the Chair, the 23rd of June workshop will be the discussion that's picking up on the likes of Middleton Stormwater. It'll be all of the other feedback that Council's received. So we'll do that on the 23rd. Administration will do some work off the back of where we think Council may wish to go from the 23rd of June meeting. We'll bring that back to the 30th of June for Council members to look at what all that looks like again. And then we'll have about a week to finalise a draft for Council's consideration at the 7th of July special Council meeting.
So, is there any discussion against the motion? Against?
It may come across that way, but I would like to speak. I'm not sure if it's... I'm not against the motion, Your Worship, but I'm also not for it, and I would just like to express my views, if I may, without being for or against. So my understanding is, if we are going to... The 23rd and the 30th of June aren't decision-making forums. We have taken a budget and long-term financial plan to our community, the long-term financial plan for the second time, mind you. If the fallout from this is material changes to our budget and our long-term financial plan, I think we need to factor in taking that back to our community. Now, I'm not speaking against this and I'm not speaking for it. What I guess my point is in debating this is respecting the process that I understood we were going to follow. Now, I was at the Middleton, the Port Elliot session, community session, and I would be, it was so informative, and I would be staggered if we weren't going to do this anyway. So I'm not voting against it, and I will be possibly voting against it only because I see it as redundant. I'm not sure. There were many actual motions that I could have brought forward as a result of the feedback that I heard at Goolwa, at Strathalbyn and at Mount Compass. But out of respect for the process and only having seen the feedback from the community the other day, I find this single this out is problematic for me. I would be assuming that we're going to do this anyway on the 23rd and the 30th. So it's really, of course, I want to support it because of course we would do this, but I think we're going to do it anyway. But to say that we're going to prioritise this over other things without knowing, it's the only reason I would support it is because it says considers. But my understanding was from the 6 workshops that we've had so far on the budget and the next 2 that are coming, we are considering this and all the feedback that's coming from the community. So I'm just going to foreshadow right now that if on the 7th of July there are material, we're talking millions, up to $1 million of changes, material changes we're going to make to our budget that we've just finished consulting the community on, which haven't even sat down as a chamber to consider feedback on, that I will be flagging at the 7th of July meeting to defer adopting our budget if this is the approach that we're going to take. And it's not because I feel I have to stress I'm not diminishing what happened at Middleton at all. And I hope my comments aren't seen as diminishing what happened at Middleton. I'm just finding this, I feel it is redundant because we will be doing this anyway based on the feedback that we've had from the community and the feedback that's been submitted in writing. Thank you.
Is there any discussion against the motion? If not, Councillor Oliver, before you need to write a reply. Well, hang on, I asked you. No, I reserved my rights. You did, but I asked, and nobody put a hand up. So if you wish to speak.
Thank you, Mayor Parks. Sorry for the confusion. I just didn't want to speak straight away. I just wanted to hear what the arguments were first. When I looked at this motion, it seemed to me that what Councillor Oliver was trying to do was to input lots of information that's going to be discussed at our information sessions next week or maybe the week after. And I thought these are all matters that we should be considering because I'm not sure that we've done as much as we perhaps could have or the community expected us to do in relation to the floods in Middleton. So I thought this was all useful. Look, I've got some questions as part of this, and one of those is that one of the things we've been discussing is the heavy transport bypass route. When we did, we talked about it might have some flood mitigation elements to it. So I think something that we need to know next Monday is where this is at in terms of what the government might be thinking about. And if you are going to talk to the government, perhaps you might want to talk to the opposition as well, because we do have this election next year, and this is an opportunity for all levels of government to be able to do something positive for Middleton. Can I just bring you back to the report of the 17th of February, where there was a table in there that talked about recommendations and the progress. And it's just general questions about yes or no is the answer, because I think all these things should be discussed next Monday at that information session. And the things that were raised in order was $5,000 was put in the budget for a report by September the 24 on the scoping, and I'm assuming that was complete. I could take these one at a time and just say yes or no from someone if you like, rather than trying to answer them all.
Through the Chair, we will be going through all 10 of those recommendations in detail and advising where we are at with each one of those recommendations.
Okay. The next one was...
Sorry, Councillor, sorry. To rephrase that, resolutions.
Yeah. The SCS were preparing a confidential catchment plan for Middleton Creek. Was that completed?
Through the Chair, yes.
The ops budget, we were looking for grant funding for a weather station and also a level gauge in Middleton Creek. Will there be some information about the success of that?
Through the chair, yes.
And we're also writing to the Landscape Board about collaborating with private landowners. Will this be presented as well?
Through the chair, yes.
Good. We've already written to the government re the culverts under Goolwa Road, and it seems like their response is that the culverts were adequate. I'm assuming that's a yes.
Yeah. Through the chair, yes, that hasn't changed.
The other one that was also in that report was to write to Steam Ranger re stormwater pipes and culverts under the rail lines. And have there been a response from them?
That correspondence was actually with DIT, copied in Steam Ranger. We've had no response from that.
Okay. And $55,000 is requested for a specialist consultant for stormwater system along Mill Terrace. Is that in progress?
Through the chair, yes.
Just a side question. I understand that an area in Mill Terrace was originally a council dump, and recent rains uncovered an area of whitish sort of material. But apparently this was quickly filled, this is a resident telling me this was quickly filled in at a resident's ask. Could it have been a place where asbestos was dumped?
Through the chair, I'm not aware of that, and I'll take that on notice.
Okay, thank you. I'm also applying for a grant money for Middleton, which is a 50-50 grant. Has there been any result for that grant application?
Through the chair, could you explain or could you provide more detail on what you mean by grant?
I'll take it to the last one, which says, choose the highly technical specification around. I'll give you a copy of this, but if I can just turn to the last page. With the support of the Landscape Board, we have submitted an expression of interest for Disaster Ready Fund, DRF, grant money for Middleton, which is 50% co-contribution grant.
Through the chair, yes, that'll be covered in the information session.
Okay, all right. Look, it's important that all that information comes out because this is, for the community, it's such a bloody important issue and we need to resolve it and resolve it properly. So hopefully all of that information comes to us next Monday. And I guess I had one, the heavy transport, that's been covered. Thank you very much. I support it.
So Councillor Oliver, do you use your right to reply?
Thank you, Mayor, and through the Chair. Again, that was a great discussion, which I really welcome. That's what I wanted to do, is to get this issue front and centre into our budget process so we can take action this year, not wait several years. So thank you. And I'd just like to clarify again that this motion was submitted before the concept of the workshop was provided. So thank you for doing that in response, and I'm looking forward to the workshop. Again, I'd just like to reflect what Councillor Coomans has said. This is intended to put some specific detail into that workshop. So thank you.
That ends the discussion, so I'll put the motion to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Item 9 is administration reports. 9.1 is proposed fees and charges for 2025-26. Andrew Alderson isn't with us this evening, but Andrew is here. Is there anything to add to this report?
Through the chair, just to note that fees and charges that are before you with this report were workshopped by Andrew recently, so nothing's changed since that workshop.
Sorry, through the chair, can I please just provide one point of clarification as well? Just in the line regarding the fees Goolwa band, state $5,000. However, since the pushing of the agenda, I've had confirmation from their committee that they are happy with our proposal of $500 per annum for the next 2 years during the hire only model that we're trialling. So it will be 500 instead of 5,000, and then this will be offered, I believe we sent an email today to the Strathalbyn band to offer the same. They did provide us an offer of a bit higher amount, but we'll be doing same for same between the two halls.
So we have a recommendation before you, 2 dot points. Remover for that. Councillor Coomans. you wish to speak to it?
I only know I support it because we have what's happening, yeah. And I surely do like the fact that we're looking after our most important Goolwa town band, because it was one of the issues that they raised about sort of money that it's almost dead, to use the Centenary Hall, and you know, 500.
Councillor Cummins, just as the mover, do you wish to include and note the acknowledge the reduction in fees for the band at Goolwa and Strath to $500 per annum? So it goes in the motion? Yeah. Councillor Cummins, you're happy with that wording now that's on the bottom? All right, so thanks. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Miller, you a seconder?
I just would like to, if Councillor Cummins is happy with this, to say from 5,000 to reduced to 500, just so it's clear. Because in the agenda it says 5,000, so I just want to capture what we've done here.
So is there any discussion against? Councillor Scott, you're against? Is there any discussion against?
Well, a question then, please.
Question, yeah.
I'm generally in favour, but I have a couple of questions and I'd like to see some alterations. One's been done for the town band and I thank you for doing that. There's a dog surrender fee of $250. And I'm just thinking, that's a lot of money for a person to, what is involved in a dog surrender fee? Is that when the dog's considered to be too wild to be kept and then they have to surrender it, or is it as a result of a court order, or is it could I have some clarity around that, please?
Through the chair, I'd just like to let council know that you've already resolved the dog and cat management fees. I think that was done last month, so notification would have been sent to the dog and cat management board already. So I would tend to advise against council adjusting anything to animal management fees,
Right.
because you said that last month.
Sorry, I read it very closely over the weekend. The busking fee of $16. Now, in all honesty, you'd be lucky to make $16 on a Saturday morning busking in the square, where I want it to be out here with the vine over the pergola and everything in the summer holidays. We're going to charge them $16 to do it. They're going to sit there with a guitar and some and have their guitar case there catching a bit of money. We've got to pay $16. They've got to come when the office is open to get the permit to do it, for goodness sake. You know, and it adds to the atmosphere. You see busking around. It adds to the atmosphere on wherever it's Saturday morning or Friday evening or whatever. We're certainly not encouraging it at charging $16. And it's an opportunity, particularly for young people. And I've seen in other places, quite young people, you know, students, student age, doing it. And I think that that's a disincentive, and I'd like to see it removed. And the other thing is that the community meeting room in Goolwa, and I suggest in Strathalbyn, that a community meeting room for the community, and that's not a play on words, there's a standard hire rate of $20, and that's fine if someone, but when it's for a community organisation, we're charging $15. And I honestly think that we should be able to provide local groups, like whether it be Lions, Rotary, whatever, a free room. And I just think that $15, someone said to me not long ago that 6 of them meet over something and they pay $15 to go in there. At the end of $50 or $60 million, couldn't we at least a little room like Fishbowl that people could come in, book it, not just wander in and have a meeting, but book it, and if it's for the community, it be free of charge. If necessary, I'd like to move in that direction with the permission of the mover and the seconder, that we make those alterations.
You're supposed to tell us you want to move something before you go about talk about it.
So what he's looking for is
through your worship, just to provide some clarity, if a variation is to be sought, then it needs to be clearly articulated what is to be varied, and the mover and the seconder need to agree to that with leave of the meeting being granted. If either the mover or the seconder do not agree to it, or leave of the meeting is not granted, then an amendment will need to be moved, again being very clear about the exact things that are going to be changed.
Through the chair, just one other is Stacey Basin actually has delegated discretion on some of these fees, so Stacey can actually waive the fees if the situation warrants that. And generally speaking, with such matters that we're talking about, that's exactly what we would do.
So, Councillor, I'll ask Councillor Coomans first. Are you happy with a variation based on what you've been advised?
No, because it's the very point that the CEO just made is what my thinking was, that there must be some discretion in all of this, and if that's the case, then that would be applicable in these sorts of circumstances.
So, is there any further discussion?
Councillor Scott's not moving an amendment?
No.
No.
Unless you want to move an amendment, which it seems we've already discussed, it can be applied for and changed. So,
yes, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to do it, thank you.
Happy to do what?
What you're suggesting, moving an amendment.
Move an amendment?
Yes.
So you're going to move an amendment? So,
And if we can just be clear on what he's moving. Yeah.
So well, he should have moved the thing.
So through the chair, so thank you for that, Councillor Scott. So Councillor Scott's moving an amendment, so we just need your assistance to be clear exactly what you're wanting to move.
That the community meeting room in for the community or of a community organisation, the fee be waived, and so be $0, and the busking fee also be $0.
And just to be very clear, if you wish to move an amendment, you say, I wish to move the following amendment before you talk to the item, not after you've spoken to it. Otherwise, you know. So procedurally...
point of order.
Procedurally, this is a mess, but we'll allow it to continue. But so you've moved your amendment.
Yeah, could I just point of order, Your Worship? The point of order is that I prefaced my remarks by seeking a variation with the mover and the seconder, who then, the mover, denied that opportunity. So I was then put back, having gone through the whole thing, put back because I thought it would be simple change that on the balance of probabilities that the mover and the seconder would accept it. That hasn't happened, so now I'm in the position of doing an amendment, which means I couldn't ask to preface my remarks by asking for an amendment because I didn't know I was going to move one.
Well, I don't agree with you, but you've said it. So I'll take advice from Lachlan. So is there a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Oliver, you wish to speak? You wish to speak? So is there any discussion on the amendment? If not, I'll put the... Yep.
I don't want to make a big deal of this because really the important thing was that the a senior staff member has some discretions in whether this applies or whether it doesn't apply, and I was comfortable with that. That if a busker knocked on the door and said, "I want to play out the front with my guitar," then someone would say, "Well, have a go." But if you're going to every week and you're going to be raising lots of money, then maybe we'll charge you something for it. So to me, this is discretionary in terms of using the community meeting room. Yeah, I'm happy if it was zero, but again, there's some discretion depending on the group. You know, there are groups that you'd want to charge them a lot more than what you can. So I think discretion is the way to go with this.
So is there any further discussion on the amendment? You wish to have your right of reply, Councillor Scott?
Sorry, I think I made it clear, thank you.
So I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? That's lost. So we move back to the original recommendation. Is there any discussion on the original recommendation? Motion, sorry, yes. Well, no, it's a recommendation. Right, because it's been moved, yep. Fair enough, yep. So is there any discussion on the motion? If not, I'll put that to you. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. So 9.2 is the Goolwa Oval new lease proposal. There's the recommendations with 1, 2, 3, with 3 A, B and C, so we'll do them individually. So recommendation Group A is that... Oh, sorry, yeah. Are there any questions for clarity? No. So, Stacey, is there an update at all on anything? No. So we got recommendation A that we receive and note the report. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Gardner.
May I speak? I'm so pleased that staff have been able to accomplish this because the tennis club and the netball club are very separate from the Oval, and the new building, while it's really beautiful, is a long way from the netball and tennis club. And they've got their own little club room, which they've had for years and years. And honestly, I think this is a great outcome, so thank you for that.
So do we have a seconder? Councillor Miller, you seconding it?
Yep. I reiterate what Councillor Gardner has said. I think this is the most obvious and best way forward. And just briefly, I think the proposal from the President of the Goolwa Tennis Club was exceptional. Part 5, community values and future vision, resonated with me. This approach is about inclusion, friendships, practical stewardship, and very much an enabling approach. And I just want to say thank you to the clubs and to our general manager community, and making it easy to receive this and consider the next lot of recommendations. And I think it's very much an enabling approach and does reflect good governance and community fairness, as the President pointed out. So I'm really delighted to see this progress.
Is there any further discussion? Councillor Maidment.
I have a question for GM community. Will the tennis club and the netball club remain on the management committee, given that everyone's running around looking for separate leases?
Through the chair, thank you. Yes, they will. I think it's in their proposal as well that their intention is to stay as non-voting associates. All the 6 clubs of the Recreation Grounds Management Committee do want to stay as one group because they want to look at fundraising opportunities over the whole precinct.
So any further discussion on recommendation Group A? If not, we'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. So we go to recommendation Group B, and that's got the 3 dot points. Is there a mover for Councillor Miller, you moving it? Wish to speak to it?
No, thank you. Just what I said in the previous item, I think this is a great way forward.
So do we have a second? Councillor Oliver. Is it any discussion? Councillor Maidment.
Question. I noticed the 100% rate rebates being applied. This is, they will still be paying CWMS?
Through the chair, yes.
Any community group that is or rent or whatever still pays CWMS. It's because it's just actual service. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Coombs.
I'm not in favour of this one because my microphone's not, now it's working. I'm one of those who, I guess my history goes back to committees of management of sporting complexes, and I've always found that when you have one master committee of management responsible for the whole sporting precinct, it's a much better outcome for everything. It also means that council is one step back because it's that committee that then decides what happens, when it happens, if it happens, and then talks about sharing all of their facilities. Someone mentioned about fundraising. Having a group this large means that you've got better opportunities for raising funds. I'm just a little sad that the Lions aren't part of it either, because they should be on the committee of management, because if anyone knows how to raise money, groups like that, or Rotary, or in my days it was Apex, they are the experts in raising money. So I would have liked to have seen this as one committee of management. I understand Netball and Tennis Club have got their own little clubhouse and, you know, are concerned about having to raise money to pay for maintenance of the ovals and things like that. But they need to have a seat at the table with voting rights so that they can be part of the overall management of that precinct. We've already heard from the bowling club, and it was offered, some discussion was had about them being part of the committee of management, because they too share that precinct. They also share the parking that they use, and we had a deputation from them wanting us to spend some money to put some shading over their bowling rinks. I think this is the wrong way to go. I already said that when we had the Malang situation. We've now got two committees of management. I think future will show us that we've got the wrong direction on this. I think there should be one committee of management, and there could be sub-leases for things like the netball courts or tennis court and other facilities that are specific to a particular group. Sub-leases can do that, and then the whole committee of management can then work and look after the whole precinct. And to me, it's the way we should have gone on this. But so I'm oppose Group B recommendations because I think that is wrong.
Is there any further discussion? I just, before Councillor Miller replies to it, just point out that when we go back in time, the Lions Club and the Bowling Club came to every council meeting, every Oval Committee meeting. They weren't a voting member, but they were a participant in the precinct. And that worked extremely well, because the idea of that was if bowls were going to have a big tournament, they'd make sure it didn't happen when there was a home game or a finals game. And the same if there's a finals game, you didn't have anything else major going on. And what they've done, as Councillor Gardner said, is what they should have done, in my opinion, earlier, and I discussed this with netball. You stay with tennis and keep in the old club rooms, because you've got all the facilities there, toilets, they've got a little kitchen in there. They used to have hot soup at 6:30 in the morning for the little kids to have a soup with little ones when they're playing netball. It makes sense and it's a good move, but I'm pleased that netball are still participants in the running of the overall big building. They're helping in the fundraise, they're volunteering in there and making the whole precinct work, because they all understand it's going to be better for them all. I think it's a great way. I think you'll see once we get to the next stage, which Stacey's been working on with football and cricket and to a smaller degree hockey and croquet, that it'll all start to come together, because it is working very well and the clubs are getting very positive about where they're heading, and then once we get this tidied up, it'll make a huge difference. So, have you got a reply? Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just very briefly, I think you've summed it up, articulated that really well. I know in the past I've had a lot to say about the Goolwa Oval, and I am absolutely delighted with this very positive step forward. I think you can't force people to work together. This doesn't stop any of them working together. In fact, it probably frees them up to work together without too much angst. You know, my own experience is when you're not forced to work together, you can actually work together better. I think the Malang Oval is, I'm glad Councillor Cooman's raised the Malang example, and I'll speak a little bit more about that in my members' report later in the meeting. But, you know, I think this is a very positive way forward, and I think I've heard good things about how things are progressing, and I just want to congratulate again how everybody's working together and trying to find a really positive solution to what has been such an ongoing issue. And yes, congratulations to everyone, and I don't think this in any way inhibits anybody from working together. It probably will make it a lot easier. Thank you.
That ends the discussion on Group B. So I'll put that to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. So we go to recommendation Group C.
Yes, I'm happy to move this, but as I've had several attempts at doing, I would like to see an end date to this. I'm even happy to put it as no later than the end of the Great Southern Football League minor round. I hope that's close to being sorted out, but this has been going on for the whole term of my term on council. I just, at some point, we need to put an end date, if that's at all possible. So that's what I would like to move. Everything printed, acknowledge the content of the report, but I just would like, at a future meeting of council, but no later than the end of the Great Southern Football League minor round, because then you'll be finals and then you'll go into cricket. I just think it would be nice for everyone to finally have some closure on this, and if I understand correctly, everything's pretty close, and I'm hoping that the momentum continues.
Thank you. Through the Chair, I will continue to do the best I can with the time frame, but because it is a group of people, as you said, not to force them to work together, yeah, I can't guarantee that time frame. I would hope so, but because it's going to be a council resolution, I'm actually not in control of that group signing. So I'm not sure where you're...
So that Stacey's certainly put it on the line. I mean, we can't dictate to them when they have to sign. I mean, hopefully they will, but don't forget, you know, you're well aware it's got to go through consultation as well, which takes time. But I think once we get the agreement to go ahead and go to consultation, then no. So we'll see where we go. So
I'm happy to remove it, Your Worship, but I really hope, I mean, it is a council building, it's a community asset. We have obligations to our community as well, and I completely accept that you can't force them to, but I'll remove it for the sake of noting, it's just noting it, but I do hope, and I appreciate that I'm sure there's a commitment. I'm sure everybody's quite over talking about it and negotiating, and whatever happens, I just hope that it reflects the level of support Council is providing to all the users of this precinct, notwithstanding it is a community building, so I'm happy to just note that we'll hopefully get some progress in the very near future.
So do we have a seconder, Councillor Oliver? Any discussion? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 9.3 is the Future Living Code Amendment. Stacey, is there anything to change in this report? So if not, is there any questions for clarification? You understand what we're talking about? So there's a recommendation there with three points. Is it move for that? Councillor Thornton, do you wish to speak to it? So is there a seconder? Councillor Coomans.
Speak.
Councillor Coomans, yeah.
So have I seconded it?
No,
Mayor?
no, Councillor Coomans, there were three. Okay. Put your hands up.
Yeah, I would like to speak for it because I think this is a really creative way of having more housing, and particularly in these areas. And I think it has an opportunity to create some really creative ways of having housing closer together.
So is there any further discussion? Councillor Maidment.
I don't know how this was thought out to put co-located housing into the established neighbourhood zone. I'll give you an example of an established neighbourhood zone in Strathalbyn, particularly the area bounded by North Parade, Mance Road and Taylor's Lane, and it's the old part of Strathalbyn. It's got a heritage overlay on it, so and some of those houses have been there for a long time, and if you're going to have co-located housing, will the CWMS capacity of those houses need to be upgraded, and that would be something that would be considered in the development application. Now, in that particular area, we only have one strip of bitumen, so it's not actually a road. There are no footpaths and never ever likely to be any. There is no street curbing. We don't have room for street trees in that area. Now, how will this accommodate in mobility for the ageing in place, particularly when grandma and grandpa are in their gophers and they have to negotiate a small strip of bitumen to get down to the shops. So the power infrastructure in that area is at capacity, and the ability to have separate CWMS connections is very problematic in that particular zone. So, and I don't think that this is even passed by the Heritage Committee with being a heritage overlay. So there are plenty of other neighbourhood zones around Strathalbyn which it could be applied to, but it just seems that we're focusing on established neighbourhood zone, and most of the established neighbourhood zones in older houses, which yeah, they be in other areas as far as.
Thank you. Through the chair. The code amendment is based on the established neighbourhood zone because the primary intent behind it is to retain buildings of character value. Some of them may be heritage places, some may not. But the idea is to be able to retain that existing building so that you don't impact on streetscapes, but also to provide opportunities for some other smaller forms of housing that can rely on common facilities. And you may find that the community wastewater management scheme, it could be a common facility. They don't need to have individual ones for each dwelling. It also retains common gardens and the like. So very much it's a test case. We were one of 6 councils across the state that formed stage 1 of this. I think initially when the established neighbourhood zone will get limited take-up, which is unfortunate because I think it's a really good proposal and it's something that we could look to expand in the future.
Any further discussion? Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm afraid I don't share in Councillor Gardner's optimism for this. Having read through this, I'm actually quite concerned. I think this is the thin end of the wedge, particularly with our historic areas. And unfortunately, those are the areas that seem to be concentrated on. I mean, why on earth we couldn't have it in some of the newer areas and leave those old areas alone, I don't know. It says here in just one thing that caught my eye was, inverted commas, in situations where the co-located housing overlay applies to areas where either historic area or character area overlays or any other overlay also apply, then the policies contained in these overlays will need to be considered collectively and of equal importance when considering the merits of co-located housing development. That means that an historic place or a house in an historic area, that is no more valuable than the other overlays that go with it. So instead of being able to use a lever to perhaps not go down this path and preserve a property, you can't, because as I understand it, and I'm not qualified in this planning area, I appreciate, but I'm just reading as any other person that might own a house will read it. We look at the examples, and I guess they're sort of examples of what's happened already, and they don't look good. We have a Federation House on Waterport Road. It was the brickyard manager's house, has got this structure next to it that completely spoils the ambience of that property. We look at going into Port Elliot. Horrified as I was, the hedge around Hubert Basham's house was knocked down, and now there is a house going up right next to it. Now, that may not be quite what the co-located housing overlay might originally intend to be, but those two are certainly not good looks. And the whole thing with those old houses is that they need the garden around them and the space. They don't need dog boxes all around them. And one of the other things I noticed is that you've got to have shared parking. So all the cars are clustered together in one spot. So I presume that then is code for if there's a good old-fashioned garage next to the good old-fashioned Federation House, you can knock that garage down in the name of having co-located parking. I mean, I would say don't let it anywhere near Strathalbyn, anywhere near any of the old areas, because it's going to spoil the ambience of that. And I haven't got the maps in front of me, but I think it was Margaret Terrace and Port Elliot, really the background place where there's lovely big old houses. Sorry, I did turn it on. It's just sorry. And then I see. I've read the letter and the letter of the Minister of Planning says that there will be demolition, but I think the letter that was drawn up by our council says there won't be demolition. So I was a little bit confused. I missed the opportunity for asking clarity earlier. But I'm afraid I'm absolutely dead against it, because I can see that we are going to lose some of those lovely old properties. It smacks of greed. Obviously, the fact that they're now zooming in on trying to put, I think it's up to 3 or 2 or 3 little places on the property around the house. I think it's just going to spoil if it's allowed to go willy-nilly. If someone wants to have their parents there or whatever and build what we used to call a granny flat, but it needn't be a granny flat, you can get some nice little places. Okay, but not to go and make this cluster around our lovely old properties, and some of those properties in Strathalbyn are to die for. I think they're magnificent properties. To have them and things all wedged in, and they say they're not supposed to be cutting down the trees, but a whole lot went in Port Elliot. So I can see it being potentially, I won't say abused. I'll say that it will be used in a manner differently from what we're contemplating now.
5 minutes. Can you finish, please?
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Councillor Thornton, do you want to write a reply? No. So I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? Against? It's carried. .4 is the Fleurieu Regional Waste Authority, their third quarter budget review. Is there any questions? It's going to work now. Are there any questions for clarification? Okay, so recommendation there. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Gardner. Seconded, Councillor Maidment. Is there any discussion? Councillor Scott.
Just a question, if I may. That we hear about this vehicle that is lost in a road accident. Was that a hook lift truck, or was that a curbside pickup truck? Why I ask is that I presume it was a curbside truck, but further down through the list, it's got replacing a hook lift bin lost in the accident.
Through the Chair, in answering this question, I need to advise that I do have a material conflict of interest as a board member of that subsidiary. That said, council did nominate onto that board, so I will be answering that question. In response to that question, the piece of plant that you referred to was part of that incident. It was a truck and trailer. So that is what it's referring to.
Thanks, Al. Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 9.5 is the Fleurieu Regional Waste Authority Charter Review 2025. Are there any questions for clarity? Councillor Coomans.
Just in relation to the Charter Clause 6, when it talks about the executive officer, are there any general managers as part of FRAWA, or in other words, are there other executive officers there, or is there only one? And if so, why call them the chief executive officer and there's only one executive officer?
Through the Chair, I will have to ask Alan as the board member representative to answer that for us.
Okay. Again, I just need to declare my conflict of interest there as a material conflict of interest, being a board member of that subsidiary. But as appointed by council onto that board, I will answer that question. The organisation, I don't believe there is a definition for what is a chief executive officer. However, what the board discussed and took into account was the size of that organisation and the complexity of the organisation, and the status of that executive officer in relation to others that sit within that industry and others who are have the designation of chief executive officer rather than just executive officer.
So we have a recommendation there before us. Is there a mover for that? Move, Councillor Gardner. Second, Councillor Maiden. Is there any discussion? Councillor Coombs.
If I could just ask another question on that. Are there any implications if the senior officer of that organisation is called the chief executive officer, or just an executive officer in terms of financials, salaries and things like that? Are there any implications?
Through the chair, if the question is purely around remuneration, the remuneration of that position is a matter for the board to consider and has considered, but it's considered based on the role, not on the title of the role.
So, any further discussion? Not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. I know these microphones are about as frustrating as you can get without throwing out the window. You just keep an eye on those talking. They keep doing that and turning off, and you miss part of the conversation. According to working on a replacement. We are, yes. We are working on a replacement.
Voted no for that last.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't see that. Yeah, just a bit, yeah. So it's carried.
Just need to make sure the tenure changes.
So it's just carried. No. So 9.6 is the Fleurieu Aquatic Centre Joint Venture Quarterly Report. Stacey, is there anything changed to that? No. Are there any questions for clarity on that report? If not, there's a recommendation there that we receive and note that. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Scott. Seconder. Any discussion? Are there any discussion? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Thanks, Peter. (9.7) is Council Advisory Governance Arrangement for SEEK and the Wooden Boat Festival Committee. Tash, is there anything changed? Are there any questions for clarity? Any questions for clarity, Councillor?
I think I'm going to ask them here, but if they're not appropriate, I can ask them later. I just wondered if this committee's ever undertaken a self-assessment or a skills matrix assessment has been done, and where in the terms of reference does it say the committee has a role in making recommendations for appointments? And I think I'll save my other question for later, if these aren't appropriate now.
Thank you, through the Mayor. Sorry, I'm unable to answer the question about whether they've done a skills assessment or skills matrix. Potentially the Group Manager Regional Development can answer that. Perhaps if I could throw to him while I do that, and I'll try and find an answer to your second question.
through the chair, I'm not aware of any such assessment being undertaken.
Are there any other questions for clarity while we're waiting? For Lachlan? No? That's okay, thanks.
Thank you. Through the Mayor. In terms of the selection clause, it was 4.3, does say that council appoints the members to the committee. I'm just trying to find in relation to actually the selection panels. My understanding, the history of these selection panels is that usually the council members who sit on the committees actually form part of the selection panels that assess the candidates, but it's not specifically written into the terms of reference as such.
So we have a recommendation there with Group A, B, C, D and E. So I think probably we'll do group recommendation A first. Is there a mover for that? Councillor
Group A, I'm happy to move that even note. But I have some, I don't think, I thought this would work better as a Sections 41 committee, so I'm just happy to move one that we receive and note.
You want to break it down even further to just part one? Moving just part one? Yes. So is there a seconder for that? Councillor Gardner. Any discussion? Councillor Kermans. We're only talking about one. I know.
It is a little messy, but can I just raise this? It says in the reference that the chair is appointed in accordance with clause 4.3, when in fact it should be 5.3 and 5.4. Could you just take that on board? And I think both terms of reference make that mistake. It's probably an overspill from the old one. The other thing I guess I have an issue with is the clause of 6.3 that talks about the minutes, and the terms of reference, it just basically says it'll be the motions that the committee or recommendations that it makes to council. It doesn't talk about some context to those. This one's working. I guess the sad thing that I find is that it doesn't appear to include anything about providing some précis to what the discussions were about. You know, the various options considered, the pros, cons, discussion, and then a recommendation showing was either unanimous or just carried. If they're going to be an advisory committee, I think we need to know what their thinking is in terms of any recommendation. And I couldn't see that. To me, that should include as part of what the minutes should contain, because they don't just sort of make a recommendation and away it goes. They do have some discussions, and I think if they are advisory, then we should know what the context of those discussions. It doesn't have to be a word by word, and if I appear to be talking elsewhere in the recommendations, but you know the whole thing's a little bit messy. The thing that I included under minutes is that it shows something in terms of what the discussions were and so forth. It leads them to make a recommendation, and I'd also like to see whether it's carried or unanimous. That would then be a good indicator to the council where their thinking is and where they've come from and where they want to go.
Thank you, through your worship, and thank you for the well-considered comments. The point I would make overall is that a Section 41 committee essentially operates very similarly to how a council meeting operates. We don't provide a commentary on discussion or debate within the chamber. We talk about what the resolutions are. And so it's essentially consistent with that. In terms of the point about whether decisions are carried or carried unanimously, the minutes may well record that in the committee meetings. I haven't written it specifically in terms of, to be that specific to that element of meeting procedure, although, again, more generally, the meeting procedure that applies to Section 41 committees is parts 1, 3 and 4 of the local government procedures at meeting regulations. So we are somewhat limited in how much we play with those. In contrast, the advisory groups that Council has adopted for other advisory arrangements have a lot more flexibility. And if I reflect on the Heritage Advisory Group that met very recently, that actually did contain commentary on the considerations of the advisory group. So I understand what you're looking for, but that's not really how a Section 41 committee works.
So is any further discussion? You try to reply. We're talking about dot point. We're talking about one, nothing else. Receiving and noting. So I'll put that recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? No, hang on. We'll do it again. It's what we call catch up. So we're all together. So all those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously this time. Thank you. So now we go to Group A still, but under number 2. Is there a mover for that?
This is very interesting, and I'm so glad I was at the Climate Emergency and Environment Advisory Committee when they started discussing whether they would become an advisory meeting or stay as a Section 41. And there was quite an involved discussion and a concerned discussion. And unfortunately, I didn't go to their last meeting, and I'm really sorry about that, because I think this is where it was actually brought up to retain the Section 41 committee status. And I'm not clear about the reasoning, but I suspect it's about them believing, and I believe this too, that this is a very important meeting. This is a very important group. We declared an emergency, a climate emergency, several years ago. And unless we actually act on that as an emergency, we're not actually fulfilling our obligation as a council. And so this committee is a very important one because they provide leadership to us. And I think that is part of the reason why they have chosen to become or retain the Section 41 committee. And I'm quite happy for them to do that. If they think that they can perform their duty better as a Section 41, then we should be happy to allow them to do that.
So do we have a seconder for that? Mr Oliver? No? Any discussion? Councillor Cooman?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little bit confused now because I was happy for this to be a Section 41. I thought that was a rather higher status than an advisory, but could you, in a few words, just classify the difference between advisory and Section 41? Because given your comments before, I think it should be an advisory committee because I want to see what their thinking is.
Through the Mayor, thank you for your question. The fundamental difference is the Section 41 committee, as the name implies, is created by Council under Section 41 of the Act. When it makes recommendations, it makes them directly to the Council, and it is governed by the meeting procedure set out in Sections 87 through to about 89 of the Act, and Parts 1, 3 and 4 of Code of Practice, Local Code of Practice for Meeting Procedures. And so it's relatively rigid in terms of how it operates. So it's the moving, seconding, resolution type behaviour. In relation to an advisory group, the only portions of the Act that really apply to it is Section 90A of the Local Government Act, which is about informational briefing sessions. And so it's got a lot more flexibility in terms of how it can operate, and also the provisions in relation to to member conduct and conflicts of interest and those sorts of things do not apply to members of advisory groups in the same way they apply to members of Section 41 committees. So I would say, basically, Section 41 committees are quite rigid and formalised, whereas advisory group meetings can be much more bespoke and flexible in terms of how that group wants to operate and conduct their meetings. Advisory groups don't resolve positions, but they can make recommendations to council via consensus, and that is reflected through an executive officer's report to council rather than a direct recommendation to council.
Thanks, Lachlan. Kermans?
Look, given that,
I'm one of those that thinks I'm one of those that thinks that committees should be able to discuss openly what's. Sorry.
if it stays on. I'm one of those that thinks that if we set up committees, they should be able to have open discussions. They should be able to minute basically the process of their discussions, and if it'll be a recommendation, whichever committee it is, to council to either adopt or modify or refuse what they are suggesting. I don't see any difference there, but I like committees to be flexible. I like them to be able to operate in a flexible situation, and you know, 41 to me doesn't seem the way that we should have our committees operating. So I think this should be an advisory committee. It doesn't appear to be any difference in the status. Both committees make recommendations, and that's exactly what council set them up to be, to investigate, to discuss, debate, and then come up with recommendations. It's a no-brainer for me. So I oppose this particular one.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I can only reiterate what Councillor Coomans has said. I won't be supporting this. And I agree, you can't have it both ways. You're either a formal Section 41 and you follow the governance model, or you don't, and you can have that discussion, and you have flexibility, agility, and I also use the word bespoke. We all need to flip our thinking on this, and I think the committee does too. I don't see not having them as a Section 41 as diminishing their importance in any way. I think it actually gives them some more scope. I think the fact that, if you think about it, there are more people on the CEC than there are in this chamber. Now, I find that challenging, that we have, these terms of reference will have up to 8 community members, 2 council members, plus the presiding member. So there's 8, 9, 10, 11. There's only 10 of us in this chamber, including the mayor. So I don't see why we need to have this as a Section 41 committee. I don't in any way diminish the members, and I asked about a skills matrix only because the report addressed an EOI that would fill any gaps, but I'm not aware of what those gaps might be and how we ascertain those. I think it has wonderful membership. I think they contribute really well. I think keeping them as a Section 41 committee, apart from what Councillor Coombs has said, what I've just said, I think administratively, if you're trying to find productivity and productivity gains, administratively, Section 41 committees are time consuming for an administration, and I won't be supporting this because I don't want them to be a Section 41, and because I have some issues with the number of members on it. I think quorum will be a challenge the bigger you get the group. I also wondered about the, and this isn't being disrespectful to anyone, I think as membership of these committees, council members who nominate for state elections have to take a leave of absence, and I just wonder if we have these as a Section 41. I think from a good governance model, anybody who nominates to be in nominate for a state election should step down from these committees. So I think not being a Section 41 will actually give this group more, not status, but will give them some flexibility and capacity. I certainly don't agree with having more people on a committee of council than there are in the chamber. So for that reason, I'm not supporting retaining it, and I'm not supporting the terms of reference for it. Thank you.
I'd like to move a formal motion that this matter be adjourned until the next meeting or a meeting after the climate group have met, and for it to be handed back to them for further consideration to be sure that this is what they want. Part of, we are responding to the advice from an advisory group. Part of me says we need to respond to their advice, because that's what we got them there for, and if we don't listen to them, why have we got them? However, considering the complexities of this, and as I agree with the two previous speakers, the limitations that Section 41 puts on a group to achieve real outcomes and real discussion, I'd like it to be reviewed by them again, with staff advising them of if Lachlan or whoever can advise them, and it comes back to a meeting that follows their next prescribed meeting. Thank you.
So that's a formal motion. Is there a seconder for the formal motion? No, it's a formal motion. You seconding it? It's a formal motion, no discussion. Yeah, Councillor Maidment. So there's the formal motion. So I'll put the formal motion to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. So we move now to recommendation group B. Is there a move now? So first we need to find out if there is a member who would like to be, or is prepared to be the approximate. So Lachlan's advice is we don't consider that until we sort two out. So we now move to group C, which is in relation to the South Australian Wood and Boat Festival. So is there a mover for that? Oliver, and you wish to speak to it?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mayor. I hadn't planned to speak to this, but I do want to say what a great pleasure and what a great success the SA Wood and Boat Festival Committee and the festival itself is, and what a great role it has played. I want to say to you that it's a really hard-working committee. We're highly functional and we're very successful. We have relayed a solid foundation for future festivals and for the all-important Wood and Boat strategy. The success of the last two festivals speaks for itself. But can I say our job is not done, and the committee, through its structure, its role, has a continuing and perpetual role to play. And the festival and the strategy must maintain its community participation, its independence and its charter. And while members may come and go, The committee and the festival deserve to survive and thrive for the benefit of the community. So I hope that we'll vote yes to this, and that will continue the status of a Section 41 committee status for the committee. Thank you.
So do we have a seconder? No seconder. Councillor Scott, you seconding it?
Yes.
Any
Well, I guess we need to raise the fact that this is also Section 41 and whether it should be an advisory committee. Given that a Deputy Mayor is a member of this and he seems to be very much supportive of 41, and it probably doesn't have the same, to me, this group really is almost self-managing and providing some recommendations to council as a secondary part of their work, so I don't have an issue with them being a 41.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. For the very same reasons of everything that I said before, I think this doesn't diminish what the Wooden Boat Festival Committee does. It doesn't diminish the membership. It doesn't diminish what they've achieved. But I will not be supporting this because I don't think they need to be a formal Section 41 committee. I think by being a flexible, agile, bespoke advisory committee, they will be able to meet more frequently, manage their affairs more frequently, you know, with so much more ease. I've always wondered why this committee needs to be so formal as a Section 41. So, again, I can only stress I'm not diminishing them. I'm wanting to give them a little bit more flexibility. They've got, especially when it comes around to getting close to the festival, I think it would be more beneficial for them to be able to meet informally, you know, if they want to call, not have to give 3 days notice of a meeting, not have to manage minutes, not to, I just think, again, from a productivity and efficiency perspective, having this as a Section 41 committee, I don't think it fits the problem that we're trying to solve with actually having this committee. So I'll be voting against this. I see no urgency to dealing with this matter tonight. I think it, you know, they've even said in their own report, a report to council will be presented in July, presenting a full wrap-up of the festival. Yeah, I think we let this, I'd rather see this be lost to hear what the be recommended that July council meeting brief that things. So because of that.
Is there any further discussion? Councillor Oliver, do you wish to write a reply? Yes.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'm sorry to labour on, but I really have to reiterate that this committee has a great level of governance, a great level of collaboration, a great level of respect, and it has achieved a lot. We have a fantastic independent chairperson who comes from the community, and I'd like to thank him for his leadership and his stewardship. And this again was all possible because of the great governance. The deputy chairperson, Ruth, for her support. I'd like to acknowledge the contribution of the independent ambassador. I'd like to note the contribution of the other committee members. Tony for his business skills and work, Nigel Robinson for his collaboration with the Oscar W, and how good was the Oscar W during that festival. Wendy for her knowledge about wooden boats. I could go on, and thank you again to the admin for your hard work and your support and collaboration of the People's Festival. So I've got to say it's a great outcome, and I've got to say if we disband this committee and we think it's going to be an advisory, if we emulate the same success, I think that we'd have to be dreaming. Thank you.
That ends the discussion, so I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It is carried. Go to... No, let's keep going. So, we go to recommendation D. Is there a mover for recommendation D? Move Councillor Oliver. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, please. Only to, I'd like to...
Hang on.
Sorry?
Sorry, one moment, sorry. Oh, yeah, sorry. This has got hidden amongst it. We've got to appoint a council member to be the proxy member on the board, on that committee. So is there a member, you're already on that committee, aren't you? Yes. So who it would have to be somebody who isn't on it already, would be the proxy member. So would it be?
I'd nominate Councillor Coomans because his involvement with wooden boats, Oscar W, and what's been able to add to that space has been quite incredible.
So are you happy to do that? Right. Anybody else?
Councillor Millie Livingston, she's been on that committee.
She's already on it.
I thought only one.
No, there's two.
Oh, okay.
So it has to be so Councillor Livingston and just a proxy in case one of them's not available. So is there anybody?
Just a further comment, mate. The reason that I was because I desired at the invitation of Councillor Livingston, she was the primary person to nominate. So I don't think we actually put it to you. Because of my to the committee, we don't need a proxy. Because I think I'm an active proxy. Thank you. Thank you. Through the chair. Well, a proxy is there to attend when other members can't. If council either doesn't have someone who's willing or unable to decide it, well then you'll just run without a proxy for this point in time.
We've got two council members on there now, so if one can't make it, there's still one there, so if nobody wants to put their hand up, I mean, I would go to most of those meetings, but I'm not getting. That's right. I just go. Is there anybody prepared to go on as a proxy? So we'll just let it go as it is, leave it as it is. So we go to the recommendation. We'll go to the recommendation 3B, which is relating to the Senate Advisory Committee appointing Kemp to the position of chairperson. Is the mover for that, Councillor Scott? You wish to speak to it?
Very quickly and briefly, he's done an excellent job. He's been there, and I'm very happy to nominate him. Thank you.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Maidment, sorry. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 9.8 is the Wharf. 9.8 is the Goolwa Oval activation, the interim lease proposals. Tash, is there anything you need to change on that?
Through the chair, there was just a minor typo here where we referenced an attachment that isn't attached. So we just updated where it did say an attachment to the essential terms and conditions that are in your agenda.
Thank you. Are there any questions for clarification? Councillor Scott, you wish to question for clarification?
Yes. Has this been done in conjunction in number 3 with the visual arts group? Are they aware of all this and have been part of the negotiation, or is this just an arbitrary thing?
Through the chair, our manager probably has been in contact with all of the applicants to get their feedback on the proposal. You'll see in there should be a proposal.
Are there any other questions for clarification? If not, do we have a mover for the recommendation? Move, Councillor Gardner.
May I speak?
Yes, definitely. Yep.
Thank you. I'm absolutely delighted that Alex FM have been given a lease longer than 1 month. They deserve it, and I know they'll be really thrilled about it. Also, the Goolwa Visual Arts Group have really enjoyed having the chart room. They've sold a lot of paintings and photographs, and they too are very happy to have that lease. As for hidden curiosities, well, gosh, my curiosity has been sparked. I am going to have to go and find out about this place. I'm going to have to borrow someone's grandchild to take, because I think it's going to be a fun place for little kids, and they sell ice creams too, I believe, so that's even going to be greater fun. I can see myself being there in the summertime. So yes, I'm very happy to support this recommendation.
So do we have a seconder? Councillor Scott? Well, let's seconder first, please. Councillor Miller, you wish to second it? Yeah.
Thank you, Worship. I too can only reinforce what Councillor Gardner has said. What I am concerned about though, which is on page 153 of our agenda, is the paragraph, "It is envisioned that a 2-year lease term proposal across all 3 of these buildings provide time for the service framework to be resolved. A service review undertaken for Customs House, the old police station and the old post office, and implemented across the Wharf precinct. Therefore, a 2-year interim lease for the chart room, superintendent's cottage and morgue appropriately aligns with these timeframes." I was quite horrified to hear that we're looking at potentially 2 years to make a decision on the rest of the, and if that's the case, I hope that's not correct. If someone can clarify that for me.
That's definitely not the case. Absolutely not. It purely gives these people that are currently in buildings some security while we're going through it.
Through the chair, it is about providing that stability. It's nothing to do with the timeline in terms of the Goolwa Wharf review.
Thank you for that clarification, but it's not quite what that suggests. So, but I'll accept that and hope that we have the rest of the precinct sorted out well and truly before then. Thank you.
Do we have any further discussion? Councillor Scott, do you have a question?
Yes, I had a question in relation to the morgue. Is the interior of it going to be changed, or are they leasing it absolutely as it is with it being maintained? Because there are 2 very nice big slabs there that I'd hate to see broken up.
Through the chair, council's not proposing any changes to it, so it's just being supplied as is to the tenant with no changes to the building.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. If you like, we can have a short break. Resolution of you. That we have a short break until 7:45. 7:45. All those in favour?
You little beauty.
We need to go. Right here, we're ready to recommence our meeting. So item 9.9 is a section 270 review report regarding Excelsior Parade, High Marsh Island. It's a recommendation there that we receive a note. So is there a mover for that? Move, Councillor Coomans. Do you wish to speak to it? No. Is there a seconder? So Maiden. You wish to speak to it? Is there any discussion?
Question. I might. What costs are involved in providing this, please?
Through the chair, thank you for the question. This exercise was done in-house, and so there wasn't a cost for any consultant legal advice associated with the preparation of the report.
Sorry. Any further discussion? No, Lachlan can't answer that. He doesn't have the hours. So is there any further discussion? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 9.10 is the Local Government Community Engagement Charter consultation, and there is a recommendation there before you. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Maidment. It's not costing us any money. Is there a seconder? Councillor Miller. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 9.11 is the review of confidential orders, various, and there's a recommendation there that we receive. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Maidment. Is there a seconder? Councillor Oliver. Is there any discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. I forgot to ask you a couple of things on that one, but that's right. Sorry. So 9.12 is the Chief Executive Officer's report. Andrew, are there any points for clarification? Are there any questions for clarification? If not, we have a recommendation that we receive and note that report. Is there a mover? Councillor Oliver. Is there a seconder? Councillor Maidment. Are there any questions or comments regarding Councillor Scott?
Just wondered, in relation on the 20th of May, met with a Hindmarsh Valley resident in relation to the Hindmarsh Valley Cemetery. Could we have a bit of expansion on that, please?
Through the chair, so that meeting was raising some concerns about the management of the actual cemetery in terms of mowing of lawn or grass or. It was really around a conversation about council's maintenance of that cemetery facility. So that's what it was about.
Sorry, may I ask? I'm a bit pushed. Which cemetery are we actually with? Hindmarsh Valley.
Hindmarsh Island, it should be.
Oh,
Hindmarsh Island.
Sorry, thank you. Thank you. I understand now.
Are there any other questions of Andrew? Councillor Smith, Councillor Cummins.
Could I ask the CEO in relation to the 2nd of May meeting with the Minister Boyer in relation to the Mount Compass preschool? Are you able to update Council on what the discussions led? I have a fair bit of interest in that area.
Through the chair, the discussion, or firstly, the meeting was arranged by David Basham. He invited the Minister down to have a look at the preschool. We were met by some of the preschool staff, and the discussion was around the upgrades or the quality of that facility, the number of preschool students, the difficulty in satisfying the number of preschool students wanting to enrol, and also some fairly loose and broad discussion around, well, what other options might be available. There was some loose discussion about land that's owned by council, land that's owned by the department, but there was no real determination from that meeting as such.
Any further questions of Andrew's report? If not, I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Not back. 9.13 is the council resolution register. Andrew, is there anything to add on that? Are there any questions for clarity on that? We've got Councillor Scott. I honestly, I can't see whether you've got your hand up or what you're doing.
Sorry, my apologies. I'm not sure whether it's for clarity or not. I have a question in relation to the conversation with the Narrandjeri Aboriginal Corporation.
Well, that will be part of the discussion.
So thank you.
So is there a mover for that? Is there a seconder? Councillor Scott. Wish to you have to ask your question now at the same time.
I'm trying to find it on here, but basically there was some resolution and some results. I think I'm in the right spot in relation to the joint naming and the discussion with the NAC, and I just wondered further clarification on that and where we're up to, because it's been 6 years since that was originally raised. So I'm interested to hear the result.
Thanks. Through the chair, we're currently consulting with the Narrandjeri Aboriginal Corporation on Council's review of its policy for the naming of roads, reserves and public places. So we've incorporated some of the dual naming principles into that policy. And it's been with them for about 6 weeks. We've asked them to provide comment within 2 months, and we'll be following that up with a meeting with them just to try and get some more information. Once we've got that, there'll be a final governance review. It's already been to the Heritage Advisory Committee for their role in terms of road naming, and then it should be presented to Council in August or September.
Thank you very much. So is there any further discussion? Councillor Coomans.
A question in relation to the item on the bottom of page 242, the first Australian Grand Prix track. I noticed that Councillor Scott and Councillor Nicholson are the council part of the discussions. I've been involved with a number of members of the historic car clubs who have got a real interest in that, and I wonder whether my name could be added to that discussion group.
So through the chair, I think Stacey basically can probably just make that commitment informally.
So is there any further discussion? No, so I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Anybody against? It's carried unanimously. 10 is committee reports. 10.1 is a report from the Audit and Risk Committee, their continuous improvement program, and there's a recommendation there. Before you, Tash, is anything to add on that? Sorry, any questions for clarification on that? If not, is there a move? Councillor Miller, you wish to speak? No. Is there a Deputy Mayor? Councillor Oliver, second. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 10.2 is a report from the Audit and Risk Committee Independent Chairpersons meeting of the 30th of May 2025. Anything to change on that, Tash? Any questions for clarity on that? So if not, there's a recommendation there. I'll put that. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Oliver, you wish to speak? No. Is there a seconder? Councillor Maidment. Any discussion? If not, I will put the recommendation. All those in favour? Okay, it's carried unanimously. .3 is a report from the Heritage Advisory Committee, engagement with Heritage Advisory Committee, future of the Goolwa Wharf precinct. Stacey, is there anything, are there any points of clarification on this report? If not, is there a mover for the recommendation? Oh, sorry, any questions? I didn't think I asked that. Any questions for clarity? I did ask that. Yeah, sorry, Andrew. I'm trying to remember. And the microphone's even behaving itself. Is there a mover? Councillor Scott. Second. Councillor Maitland. Any discussion? Councillor Miller.
I just have a question about the next steps for the Wharf precinct and the engagement strategy, I guess, with the broader community. I think that will be covered off in a workshop. Is that approach? Like, who will be invited to? It's not just going to be people who are in the Wharf area or in Goolwa. It will be a district-wide consultation on that precinct.
What I can say is that we're working on a draft this review framework that will be used to guide that. While we haven't brought that to you yet and you haven't discussed it nor endorsed it, but at the moment the way we're drafting that is that a project plan would be endorsed by council before we commence, which would also talk about the key stakeholders that are involved, so there's complete agreement before we would commence any service review.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 11 is council members' reports. 11.1 is presiding members' report, which is my report for May. There's a recommendation of, there's nothing, Andrew, nothing to change on there. Nothing to change, no. Is there any points for clarification? No. So there's a recommendation there that be received. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Oliver. Seconder. Councillor Scott. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Scott.
On the 7th, Mount Compass Currency Creek intersection on-site meeting with the Leader of the Opposition and David Basham.
Yes.
Could I?
So we met there to discuss.
Is it 5 ways?
Well, it's not. I suppose if you take the street up to Bin, it is 5 ways. I can try to convince the police and the department about that. They seem to think of it as a smaller intersection than it is. But we predominantly discussed the road, the Goolwa Road, the road from that corner through to the Victor Harbour Road, and the condition of that road and what needs to be done. And then we discussed the speed limit, both in and out of Currency Creek, bearing in mind you've got Airport Road and then you've got Myrtle Grove Road and Wellington Road, and the number of trucks, semi-trailers and B-doubles coming in and out into 100 km/h zone, which the police agree with us is really dangerous. Did say the road is designed for 100 km/h, but they're not consistent with what they designed, so we keep arguing with them. But it was mainly Vincent Tarsi just wanted mainly to understand some issues regarding the traffic around that intersection on that road, bearing in mind, you know, he's very much aware of the growth in traffic on the road and the number of cars going up and down there every day. So it was a good meeting, and then they went on from there to they went to Mount Compass from there to look at the intersection at Mount Compass and look at stuff in Mount Compass. Is there any other questions or anything? Councillor Maitland.
Yes, there's been a lot of publicity about the algal bloom, and you seem to be across it. Any update on that, or has it all washed onto High Marsh Island after the recent storms?
I might be wrong, but we don't seem to be getting the information from SA Health that we were. We just seem to be hearing about it, but we know it's got down into the Coorong, and you can only sort of guess to what's going on. We do notice, because I go down to the river every day, we do notice that river levels are being held up. The river level is very high today, and the fellow that I can't give his name for 2 seconds, that runs Wild Fish Catchment, which is down in the South Lagoon, the fishermen, he was aware that they were letting a lot of water out through New Island into Witchery, hopefully to suck at low tide, hopefully to suck the water out of the Coorong and take the algae with it. The reason they do it there, number one, it pushes the water up the Coorong, but also they can close those barrages with a remote control in a matter of minutes, so they can really control it and not get the tight salt water coming back in. So, but we're not really getting a lot of information. We did have an Australian Coastal Council's meeting today, but a month ago when we had one, I brought it up as a matter of interest, and immediately one of the committee members from Tasmania told me that they have the same problem on the southwest coast of Tasmania, and identified the Gulf Stream, for want of a better word, the current that comes through and where it runs, and it doesn't go down. It crosses the Great Australian Bight, doesn't duck in, and it comes down the coast of South Australia, crosses Bass Strait, doesn't go into Victoria, goes straight across and around the bottom of Tasmania, and it comes out of the Indian Ocean. But somewhere on the line, it's picked it up and it's carrying it through there. But I don't know, since all this bad weather and the colder temperatures and a bit of rain, I haven't heard as much about it. Sorry, as much as I. Is there any other question? No. So I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 11.2 is the council member activity report, Councillor Gardner's report for April and May. There's recommendation that that be received. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Maidment. Seconder. Councillor Miller. Are there any questions of Councillor Gardner regarding her report? If not, I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Then we have 11.3 is council member activity report, any verbal updates. So this is things that relate to your role as an elected member. Any verbal updates there? Councillor Scott.
I just want to publicly acknowledge the community plan the community plan presentations that were made by the CEO. I thought they were very much to the point, very clear. I thought they're very well received. Obviously, they generate questions, but I thought the CEO covered it very well, and congratulate him accordingly. Thank you.
Are there any further? Councillor Miller.
To mention three things. Oh, well, I was going to mention the community feedback sessions. I went to all four, and the feedback about the presentation and the content of it and the messaging was really, really good to hear. Just some people wanted longer for questions, I think, but that's the only, that showed how engaged and interested people were in it. I just say congratulations, and on the documents. The only other, two other things, I went to the SA Working Sheepdog Trials at the Finnis Oval over the weekend. That was huge. How clever the dogs are, and how that brings to our community, estimated, and congratulate the Finnis Hall Committee for the catering there. They did pass on their appreciation for the funding, the grant funding that they received through what was previously the small donations program, the cover that they can put up over their commentary area. They really appreciated that. It's made such a big difference. And I just want to acknowledge the Malone Football Club. They hosted a mental health day yesterday, and if you haven't been to Malone for a little while, I would recommend. The Oval was in pristine condition. It didn't quite rival the Langon Creek Strath Anzac Day match, but there were cars all around the Oval. There was a crowd, and it's such a great little community asset. And everything seems to be working really well down there. So, and there were people everywhere at the museum, and it was just I think that little community does perform above its weight and the oval looked amazing. So that's it. Thank you.
Any others? The one thing I just add to mine, not this weekend, but the previous weekend, Saturday, I went to a function at Encounter Bay Football Club, which was the Need for Feed, which is the people bringing hay for farmers in our region. There were 9 trucks. Most of them were big guns. Massive amount. I forget how many tons of hay they brought. It was huge. So they were there to distribute the hay. They're all volunteer drivers. The fuel and maintenance on the trucks is paid for by the federal government. But the hay, they raise money for. So they raised $48,000 on the night, and there's nearly 200 people there. And the people there included, apart from the truck drivers and people from the organisation, but also some of the farmers who have received hay. And it was really fantastic to see them there and listen to what they've been going through. And I can tell you, it wasn't a dressed up show. They just come out the paddock or out of the truck, and they were really there to have a good time. It was great, but good organisation. And but it's very interesting that they're running out of places in New South Wales and Victoria now to get hay. And they're looking at Western Australia, and the government's looking at relaxing the problems on biodiversity with bringing weeds and things over. We don't have it. They're looking at ways they can control that. But it's interesting, if they did Western Australia, they've already got 26 B doubles lined up to do Western Australia. But the cost, including the fuel, running the trucks and the hay, would be nearly $1 million to get all that hay. So it's really good. And I mean, they point out that the hay they hand to the farmers isn't enough hay to get them out of trouble. It's just enough to keep them going and get their spirits up. The suicide rate is just enormous, and it was a fantastic show. But I think I should have mentioned it. It was only the other week, but it was a great night. So, anybody else got anything? No, good to add. It's a good thing. Thank you. So I'll put that report to you. All those in favour? Oh, sorry. We need to move that we've accepted all. A mover, Councillor Maidment. Yep. Seconded, Councillor Coomans. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. So item 12 is confidential items.
South Coast Television, your community, your voice.